Have you ever wondered how a faithful man can cross 40 with clean hands, a steady job, a steady prayer life, and still come home to the quiet side of the bed? Does God not see? Does he not care? Brother, listen. You didn't land here by accident. Heaven is better at directions than you think. Every step that looked delayed was drawn on purpose. You are not behind. You are being kept. And kept is not a punishment word. It's a priestly word. God keeps what he intends to use. He keeps oil sealed until the appointed time. He keeps seed buried until the soil is ready. He keeps his sons in rooms where noise cannot drown his whisper. You've carried years that feel like pauses, but they're preparations. You've looked around and seen weddings, anniversaries, laughter spilling from tables that once held your chair. And you've asked, Lord, why not me? Heaven answered long before you spoke it. Because you were never rejected, you were reserved. The world doesn't understand reserved men. They assume your stillness is failure, your patience weakness, your restraint regret. But the Lord calls that posture faith. The waiting room of God is never empty. It's the workshop of character. That's where he welds humility to courage and silence to obedience. So before we go further, I want you to mark this moment in faith. Whisper it if you must, or write it for all to see. I trust your timing. When you type those 4 words, you're not sending data into a screen. You're planting declaration into the soil of your own spirit. Do it now, and let heaven see you. Trust the hands that wrote your story. Let me name the ground beneath your feet, the kept ground. Not abandoned land, not wasted land, but sacred territory under divine protection. God never leaves soil fallow out of neglect. He lets it rest because he's building roots deep enough to hold future rain. Your singleness is not a rumor about your worth. It's a sanctuary under construction. When God wants to speak instructions clearly, he clears the room. When he wants a man's devotion undivided, he removes distractions gently, even painfully, until the heart becomes still enough to listen. The world calls it loneliness. Heaven calls it consecration. You've been chosen for the quiet because your next assignment requires precision. A married man divides his focus by design. His calling must feed 2 hearts, maybe 10. But you, brother, have been handed the rare gift of undivided vision. Don't despise it. Don't curse what heaven calls holy. While others rush to fill silence with noise, you are learning to fill it with presence. That's why, even when the room feels empty, you sense something sacred breathing there. You didn't stumble here, you were guided. Every unanswered prayer, every delay, every closed door, they've been coordinates. Heaven has been mapping you to a destiny you couldn't have reached crowded. If only you could see how many distractions God intercepted on your behalf, how many half-loves he withheld to protect the whole There was once a man like you, 45 years old, quiet, faithful, steady, a craftsman who worked with his hands and prayed with his heart. The world called him patient, heaven called him chosen. His friends had all gone ahead, weddings, families, laughter spilling from full houses. He celebrated them with real joy, then walked home to his small apartment where the air hummed with silence. 2 mugs sat on the counter, but only one was ever washed. Each night he prayed, Lord, if this season is holy, teach me to see it as holy. The words felt strange the first time, but peace began to move in after them. He started noticing things that once felt meaningless. The soft creak of the floor, the clock's quiet heartbeat, the wind that brushed against his curtains. What used to remind him of absence started sounding like presence. One evening, as he worked late repairing a chair for an elderly neighbor, a thought came like a whisper, this is ministry too. The next day, another knock, a boy from down the hall whose father had left, asking how to build a kite. Then a widow who needed her light fixed, a friend who needed help moving. Each knock was small, but together they built something sacred. He didn't know it, but God was reshaping his idea of love. He thought marriage was the only altar. God was showing him dozens. The room that once echoed with emptiness became a workshop for obedience. He still slept alone, but the loneliness no longer ruled him. The stillness turned to strength, and the house that once kept sorrow became a temple. Every man who becomes fruitful in singleness must cross one narrow bridge from why me to what for. The first question keeps you staring backward. The second opens a gate toward destiny. The craftsman crossed that bridge the night he said, "If this is holy, help me see it as holy." He stopped demanding explanations and started asking for revelation. That was the night heaven leaned closer. You see, God never wastes pain, but he does repurpose it. Oil must be pressed, wheat must be crushed, grapes must be broken before they become anything worth serving. The ache that you think disqualifies you is the very place where anointing is born. Maybe you've been there, replaying memories that still sting, the one who walked away, the almost marriage that turned to ashes, the betrayal that still tastes bitter. God is not asking you to pretend it didn't hurt. He is asking you to hand him the shards so he can build something out of them. Every unanswered prayer has been stored, not ignored. Every sigh in the night has been a line in the story. He's still writing. What if the silence you hate is the studio where he's crafting your future strength? Take a breath right now. Inhale faith, exhale frustration, and whisper it again, not out of habit but conviction. I trust your timing. Then type it below, not for attention, but for alignment. Heaven records declarations made in the dark. Assignments rarely come with announcements. They arrive as interruptions dressed in ordinary clothes. The single man who is kept by God doesn't wait for titles. He answers quiet knocks. One morning, it's the boy next door who needs help fixing his bike. Another day, it's the co-worker who stays behind after everyone's gone because his marriage is falling apart. A widow whose front step is broken. A church member who needs a ride at midnight. You, brother, are being trained to notice what others overlook. Heaven's best servants are the ones who say yes to small things. You don't need a stage, you need sensitivity. Every time you respond, God is enlarging your capacity for purpose. The life that once felt narrow begins to widen, the emptiness begins to fill with meaning. You think you're just helping, but heaven calls it sowing. The kindness you give today may grow into fruit you'll never see until eternity. The quiet rooms you repair become sanctuaries. The people you touch become testimonies. You're not just passing time, you're planting legacy. This is how God multiplies a single life into a field of impact. You were never meant to simply wait. You were meant to walk while waiting. You are being entrusted with spiritual fatherhood long before physical fatherhood. And that's no 4 spiritual laws guide the man whom God keeps. The first 2 are mirrors. Look into them daily. Law 1, undivided attention becomes unusual clarity. When you're not divided among competing loves, your focus sharpens until you can hear the faintest whisper from God. That's why so many prophets, reformers, and pioneers walked alone for seasons. They needed silence to translate heaven's language. You too are being trained for precision. That nudge to call a friend, to take a different route home, to pray instead of scroll, those are not coincidences. They are lessons in recognition. Every time you obey a small prompting, you tune your soul tighter to God's frequency. Law 2, hidden obedience attracts holy opportunity. God gives public missions only to men who can be trusted in private ones. When you serve without applause, when you forgive without being thanked, when you keep your word with no witness but Him, doors begin to unlock that no resume could open. Heaven opens secret paths to men who can carry unseen burdens without complaint. You are one of them. These laws are not theory, they are discipline. They will pull you out of despair when loneliness whispers lies. They will remind you that you are not overlooked. You are under construction. Law 3. Stewarded solitude multiplies fatherhood. When a man learns to handle his aloneness with grace, he becomes a vessel through which God can father others. The world is full of orphans with living parents, souls hungry for guidance, strength, and calm. A man who has faced his own silence without running is a rare gift to them. God begins to send people your way who crave what you carry, peace that isn't performative, authority that doesn't need to shout. They'll come as students, co-workers, sons in the faith, and you'll realize that what you thought was loneliness was actually classroom time with God. Every hour you spent talking to Him alone was training for the moment you'd speak into someone else's storm. Stewarded solitude always reproduces. It births wisdom, patience, gentleness. It turns isolation into inheritance. Law 4. Refused bitterness releases new authority. Every single man faces the temptation to let disappointment harden into cynicism. That poison whispers, "Love failed you, you owe the world nothing." But every time you forgive what tried to wound you, you ascend in spiritual rank. Bitterness locks doors, forgiveness hands you keys. Authority doesn't come from pain avoided, it comes from pain surrendered. The enemy fears a healed man more than a married one, because a healed man can heal others. These four laws together form a compass: clarity, Now let's expose the three enemies of the kept man and the counter-moves that defeat them. The first enemy is comparison. It sneaks in through social media, weddings, anniversaries, the sight of families walking together after church. Comparison kills gratitude. It blinds you to what God is doing by showing you what He's doing somewhere else. The antidote: gratitude. Every night, name 5 mercies: breath, roof, peace, purpose, promise. Gratitude turns envy into worship. The second enemy is bitterness. It's subtle. It disguises itself as wisdom, saying, "I'll never be fooled again." But walls built to keep pain out also keep love from entering. The countermove is blessing. Bless those who married before you. Pray prosperity over couples. Celebrate their fruit without jealousy. Every blessing you speak plants seeds for your own harvest. The third enemy is secret escape, those habits that numb instead of heal. Maybe it's scrolling, fantasizing, or hiding in work. They promise relief, but steal presence. The countermove is fasting, from the thing that dulls your hearing of God. Replace the habit with worship, a walk, a verse repeated until it becomes breath. You're not fighting alone. These are ancient battles fought by the man God keeps must learn rhythm, a sacred pattern that turns waiting into walking. Purpose doesn't come through motion, it comes through rhythm. Without it, even calling feels chaotic. Let me give you a plan, not a law, but a living rhythm that breathes with grace. Begin each week with silence, not noise. One morning, no phone, no conversation, just prayer and a notebook. Write 3 sentences, 1 gratitude, 1 request, 1 confession. That's your alignment hour. Each day, commit 1 act of service, no matter how small. It could be helping a neighbor, calling an old friend, or blessing someone online instead of scrolling past. That keeps the river of generosity flowing through you. Midweek, take 1 night to do something creative. Build, fix, write, restore. Creation resets the mind of a man. It reminds you that you reflect the Creator. And every Sunday evening, review your week not by what you gained, but by what you gave. That's how you measure spiritual wealth. Did you forgive? Did you listen? Did you grow in patience? Heaven measures progress differently than earth does. The world counts possessions. God counts obedience. Do this consistently, and loneliness will lose its power over you. You will begin to feel momentum where there used to be waiting. And when someone asks, "What are you doing with your life?" you'll be able to answer without shame. Providence rarely arrives with warning. It hides inside coincidence, waiting to be recognized. One afternoon, you'll stop to help a stranger with a flat tire, and months later, that stranger will become the very voice that opens a new path for you. Another day, you'll decide to pray in a quiet park, and a conversation with someone sitting nearby will confirm a word you've been wrestling with for years. God hides divine intersections inside ordinary days. The man who rushes misses them, the man who listens catches them all. Elias, the craftsman from earlier, once met a young man wandering outside his workshop, trembling, hopeless, hungry. He invited him in for bread. That young man became his apprentice, then a leader, then a father to many. The moment looked random, but it was written in heaven. In your life, similar appointments are waiting. God will use you to mentor, to speak, to comfort, to build. Your house, your job, your quiet evenings, they're staging grounds for divine interruptions. Don't think for a moment that your story has paused. It's moving quietly beneath the surface. The miracles meant for you are already orbiting your obedience, waiting for a single yes to pull them into view. This is how God works in the life of a single man over 40, not by giving him everything at once, but by training his... Stop for a moment. I want you to hear this as if heaven itself was speaking through the static of your thoughts. You are not behind, you are being built. God has not overlooked you, He has overprepared you. Every delay you've endured was not denial, it was design. While others were forming families, you were being formed for something families will one day depend on. While others were learning partnership, you were learning presence. You have been hidden, not forgotten. Buried, not buried alive. There is a difference between being covered and being cancelled. Seeds are covered too, but they carry resurrection within them. Look at your life again through that lens. The years of silence, the nights of tears, the prayers that seemed unanswered. Each one was a chisel stroke shaping a vessel that can hold more weight than most. God cannot pour greatness into a cracked cup, so He fixed yours in private. That's why people left. That's why doors closed. That's why comfort fled. He was curing you for endurance. And now, the same loneliness that used to drain you will become the oil that fuels your ministry. If you're ready to mark this revelation, write this phrase below: kept for purpose, not left behind. When you write it, you're not just commenting, you're declaring identity. You're joining hundreds of brothers around the world who've refused to believe the lie. Let's anchor this journey in Scripture, because emotion fades but truth endures. Isaiah 56, 4-5 records God's promise to the men who choose consecration over conformity. To the eunuchs who keep my Sabbaths and hold fast to my covenant, I will give within my house and its walls a memorial and a name better than sons and daughters. A name better than sons and daughters. God Himself said that. Singleness, when stewarded for Him, is not less, it is legacy of a different kind. Heaven measures inheritance by influence, not by family trees. Now listen to Paul in 1 Corinthians 7. He writes, I wish that all men were as I am. The unmarried man is concerned with the Lord's affairs, how he can please the Lord. Paul saw his singleness not as a lack, but as a strategic advantage, a gift that freed him to travel, teach, and suffer without distraction. Jeremiah was forbidden by God to marry because his assignment demanded full devotion. John the Baptist lived in wildernesses no family could survive, yet his voice prepared the way for Christ. And Jesus, the Son of God Himself, walked this earth single, not because He couldn't love, but because His mission required undivided surrender. His solitude was not empty. Now, I want to speak a prayer over you, by age, by city, by season. Close your eyes if you can. Let the words wash through every part of you that ever felt forgotten. For the men in their 40s, Father, remind them that 40 is the age of formation, not failure, that Moses was called at 80, Caleb fought giants at 85, and yet at 40, these men already carry more wisdom than they know. Show them that what they call delay is actually calibration. For the men in their 50s, Lord, renew their strength like the eagles. Let them see that their best years were not wasted, they were invested. Every scar, every night of prayer, every lonely drive home, you were storing oil for later lamps. For the men in their 60s and 70s, whisper that it is not too late to bear fruit. You said even in old age they will stay fresh and green. Let their remaining days thunder with peace, mentorship and laughter. And for every city written in the comments, Los Angeles, Nairobi, Sydney, Lagos, Chicago, Manila, Kingston, Cape Town, London, we lift them up. Flood these cities with men whose hearts are tender, hands strong, spirits disciplined. Turn apart. If marriage comes, let it find you whole, not hoping. If it never comes, let you still die fulfilled, not waiting. Because the goal was never simply to be chosen by a person, it was to be trusted by God. The man who learns to walk with peace in solitude becomes the kind of man peace walks with anywhere. This is how God works. He builds a husband before He gives a wife. He builds a father before He gives a child. And sometimes He builds a mentor, a protector, a voice, and that becomes a legacy deeper than blood. Imagine this. Years from now, people you never met thanking God for your obedience. A young man saying, I found faith because I saw how he endured. A single mother saying, He helped my son believe again. A stranger whispering in prayer, Lord, make me steady like him. That's the reward of faithfulness, invisible yet eternal. Don't fear being different. The narrow path has fewer footprints because it leads higher. God is not punishing you with solitude. He's trusting you with intimacy that few ever experience. Let your room be your temple, your car, your chapel, your work, your worship. You may, before this message ends, I want to leave a seal upon your heart. You've listened, you've stayed, you've let the words settle deep. That alone is proof that you're not giving up. You're growing. The world celebrates men who chase noise, but heaven crowns men who endure silence. You, brother, are one of the rare ones. Your bed may still be empty, but your life is not. Your room may be quiet, but your spirit is loud in the halls of heaven. God is building you in the shadows, so that when light hits, you won't crumble under the weight of purpose. Every lonely dinner, every unanswered text, every holiday spent alone, He saw it all, and none of it was wasted. You were never being punished, you were being preserved. The same God who called Elijah to the wilderness and Paul to the road has called you to this moment. And just like them, you will walk out carrying revelation, not regret. Now lift your head, straighten your shoulders. The waiting season is not over, but the worrying season is. From this moment forward, walk as a man already blessed. Speak to yourself differently. Expectation is the language of faith. Every morning you wake, say it aloud, I am kept for purpose, not left behind. And when you comment those words below, you're joining a living testimony, thousands of men across nations. This is the Exiled Storyteller. Until the next story, may peace return to your home.